The fantasy playoffs are just 1 week away in most leagues, and we have some really exciting NFL action to look forward to this weekend. If you haven't yet secured your spot in the playoffs, this might just be your most important matchup of the season, so you'll want to be sure to have your fantasy lineup looking just right. I'm Jorden Hill, and my goal is to help you set those winning lineups as we take a look at RotoBaller's consensus half PPR rankings for Sunday and Monday's games. We'll dive right in and discuss some of the more interesting names listed, but first, please remember to leave a like on the video and drop a comment down below with any start-sit dilemmas you're facing. Let's start things off at the quarterback position with number 10, Josh Dobbs. Dobbs had a really rough outing back in Week 12 with 4 interceptions, but we think he can bounce back on Sunday against the Las Vegas Raiders. Although Las Vegas hasn't been bad this season against fantasy quarterbacks, this is most likely due to their poor run defense, and Minnesota hasn't been all that effective at running the ball in 2023. Dobbs himself offers some rushing upside though, as he scored 5 touchdowns on the ground in his past 6 contests. In addition, All-Pro wide receiver Justin Jefferson should be making his return this week, which should give Dobbs and this Vikings offense a big boost. Let's move up to number 7, Patrick Mahomes. This ranking seems pretty low for Mahomes, but the 2-time MVP hasn't been putting up elite fantasy numbers this year, and he has a difficult matchup against the Bills, who allow the 11th fewest fantasy points per game to the QB position. Regardless, we've seen some epic battles between Mahomes and Josh Allen over the years, so hopefully this showdown features plenty of scoring. And coming in at number 4 is Justin Fields, who's returning from a bye to face the Detroit Lions, who he just met back in Week 11. Fields rushed for over 100 yards and threw a passing touchdown to DJ Moore, and this was in his first appearance back from a thumb injury. The Lions have been giving up a ton of production to quarterbacks recently, so fantasy managers should feel extremely confident in an even healthier Fields playing at home against a division rival. Let's transition to running backs, starting with number 10, Austin Eckler. Eckler has been alarmingly inefficient since returning from injury in Week 6, and he hasn't posted double-digit fantasy points in any of his past 3 outings. Head coach Brandon Staley even hinted that the Chargers could start to get other running backs more involved. This is scary for fantasy, but the good news is that Eckler has a favorable matchup against the Denver Broncos. Denver's run defense has improved over the course of the season, but it still ranks dead last in fantasy points allowed to the running back position. Moving up 3 spots to number 7, we have De'Von Achane. The rookie looked healthy and got a lot of run in the second half last week as he scored 2 touchdowns against the Commanders. Unfortunately, he'll face a much tougher opponent in the Tennessee Titans this week, who surrendered the 12th fewest fantasy points per game to running backs. You'll notice that Raheem Mostert didn't crack our top 12, but he's still a quality RB2. Success isn't as guaranteed for Miami's running game in this matchup, but Achane is a must-start every week with his ability to rip off a huge gain on any given play. And at number 5 is Saquon Barkley, who struggled against a stingy New England run D in Week 12, but he's back from a bye to face the Green Bay Packers, who have been really generous to fantasy backs. New York's starting quarterback Tommy DeVito clearly likes to look Barkley's way, as he found him for 2 receiving touchdowns in Week 11. Because the Giants don't have a lot of reliable weapons on offense, Barkley is guaranteed to see a substantial workload on Monday night. We'll kick off our wide receiver rankings with number 10, Chris Olave. After a few shaky weeks in the middle of the season, Olave has come on strong with 4 consecutive games of either 100 yards or a touchdown. He did miss practice with an illness on Thursday, but this isn't likely to hold him out of Sunday's contest against the Panthers. Carolina has mostly been giving up production on the ground, but with the Saints receiving core banged up, Olave will be an essential target for either Derek Carr or Jameis Winston. Carr has been practicing in a limited fashion, but Olave should come through regardless of who is under center. I certainly thought Jamar Chase would struggle down the stretch without Joe Burrow, but he destroyed the Jaguars last week, and Jake Browning looked pretty solid. He comes in at number 8 against the Colts, who haven't been bad against pass catchers, but this isn't an especially threatening defense either. Chase has proven that he's a matchup and quarterback-proof fantasy option, so he'll obviously remain locked into your lineup. Up at number 2 is CeeDee Lamb, who is the fantasy wide receiver 1 since Week 6, finding the end zone 7 times in his past 6 games. His schedule has been incredible lately, and the soft matchups continue as the Cowboys will get the division rival Philadelphia Eagles in Dallas on Sunday night. Lamb torched the Eagles with 11 receptions and 191 yards back in Week 9, and although he didn't score, he should have a very good chance to do so this week, with Philly surrendering the most touchdowns to receivers on the year. We'll wrap things up with tight ends, starting with number 12, David Njoku. Njoku had a quiet Week 13, but he's consistently been a focal point of the Browns' passing attack. It's looking like Joe Flacco will start again against the Jaguars, and this is probably a good thing for Cleveland's offense as a whole. Jacksonville has been decent against fantasy tight ends this season, but Amari Cooper is highly questionable to suit up as he has yet to clear the concussion protocol. If Cooper is indeed out, Njoku will become an even more essential weapon. Coming in at number 9 is Isaiah Likely. We saw Likely earn 6 targets in Week 12 following the unfortunate injury to Mark Andrews. This week, he'll look to capitalize on a great opportunity against the Los Angeles Rams, who surrender the 3rd most fantasy points to the tight end position. Likely has been productive in the past when taking over for Andrews, so we like his chances to put up a solid performance on Sunday. And finally, at number 7 is Dallas Goedert. Goedert has missed the past 3 games with a forearm injury, but he's in line to return against the Cowboys after logging full practices this week. Dallas obviously has an elite defense, but it's given up a fair share of fantasy points to tight ends. With this important divisional faceoff having the highest projected point total of the week, fantasy managers need to get Goedert back into their starting lineups. Hope you guys enjoyed. Please be sure to subscribe to RotoBaller for more awesome fantasy football content that'll help you win big in 2023. Thanks so much for tuning in, and best of luck in your Week 14 fantasy matchups.